This week I posted an article on the 4 myths of uh, getting older and longevity, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about them. So, lie number one is longer lives automatically mean better lives. That's rubbish. We're really good these days at learning how to live longer. We've lots of apps. We have these Oura rings. We have our Apple Watches, all kind of things that tell us do 10,000 steps a day. No, hang on a minute, 7,000 is enough. Drink coffee. No, don't drink coffee. Go to the gym. Oh, don't do workouts. Do this, do that. Really, by the time I finish looking at all these tips that I read, I feel exhausted. I just need to have a nap. So even though we're measuring everything now, heart rate, all of this, um, yes, we can make life longer, but does that mean it's better? So really, what puzzles me is that, um, we've become incredibly good at expanding how long we live. But do we think a lot about purpose? Because for me, life is about having purpose and not losing relevance as you get older. And, so longer is not the same as better. If it was, nations that have longer living people would have lower suicide rates, and they don't. So we haven't really learned how to consistently add life to the years that we're adding. Then the second one, I think we all know, retirement is the reward. Oh no. For decades, we've sold retirement as the finish line. We've said, oh, work hard, save diligently, retire, live happily ever after. It has all the ingredients of a fairy tale. But real life doesn't allow us to flourish when we set ourselves up like that. You know, People retire, they travel, they volunteer, they learn new skills. They do things that have been put on hold in the years that they were working. And, some people discover things that they never expected. But very often I find people arrive to me and they say, this is my retirement plan. Here's how I've worked out my pension. Most retirement plans are about finances. They're not about how you're going to live those extra 20 or 30 years that you didn't reckon with. And people will start filling their time, but not fulfilling their time. I have clients who'll say, I've joined the gym, I've joined a choir, I'm going hiking once a week, but I feel empty. 6 months after retirement, people start to get that low, because at the beginning it's kind of, wow, new freedom, I can do all these things. Yes, we don't miss the meetings. We don't miss the endless emails. We certainly don't miss office politics, but we miss being needed. That's what happens. That's what sticks with people. Nobody warns you that purpose can disappear as soon as you go into retirement, because it's not just about leaving work. Yeah, it's about leaving an identity, and identities are much harder to replace than salaries. So, line number three is that experience naturally becomes more valuable. And that's something that's very close to my heart, because it sounds obvious. You think that experience becomes more valuable over time, but only if someone continues to value it. Otherwise, it gathers dust. So companies spend years investing in talented people. They encourage them to develop expertise, to lead teams, to solve problems, to mentor younger colleagues. And then just as soon as they've accumulated all of that knowledge and those skills, and it peaks, many organizations just start asking, how can we replace them with someone cheaper? Even if it's pre-retirement. It's extraordinary when you stop to think about it, right? Uh, Imagine buying a beautiful Steinway grand piano and using it as a plant stand. Technically, you can, but you'd have to question your judgment. And that's exactly what we do with human experience. We develop all this great human experience, and then we say, oh, let's just put it aside. And, you know, if I get on a plane for a flight and the pilot says, I'm really excited to be your pilot today. It's my first flight. I'm full of enthusiasm. I would definitely suddenly become very religious. The fourth one, line number 4, is that people become less relevant as they become older. And that's something that I've kind of mentioned before, is that, it's a lie that changed everything for me, actually, because over the years, I've coached people who were made redundant, and people approaching, coming into retirement, senior leaders wondering, what comes next? And people trying to rebuild their confidence, because that just goes out the door. Not one of them has ever looked at me and said, Mags, my problem is my age. Instead, they say things like, I don't know where I fit anymore. I've lost my confidence. I feel invisible. Nobody's interested in everything I know. And I don't know who I am anymore. So notice something. None of those statements are about age. They're about relevance, right? And that was a light bulb moment for me, because for years I thought I was, working in coaching. I thought I was working in retirement. Then I thought I was fighting ageism. But now I think they're just different expressions of the same underlying issue. The real battle isn't against aging. The real battle is against irrelevance. Or, even more accurately, the belief that we're becoming irrelevant. Because how do we measure our relevance? For many people, it's in their career, but not only in your career, in how you approach the world, how you talk to people on the street, how you get observed by people, But the internalized ageism, once people believe that, that they're not relevant, they stop volunteering, they stop applying, they stop putting themselves forward, and they think they have nothing left to contribute, because they internally think they've nothing to give anymore. And that isn't just sad, that is a waste of human resources and human potential. Okay, people spend 25 years and more in full-time employment. 30 years isn't a footnote. We're going to have another 30 years that we live, 20, maybe 10, maybe 2 minutes, but it's another chapter of life. But we've somehow designed a society as though all of our contribution ends when we retire. Not economically, not psychologically, and certainly not personally. It's why, it doesn't make sense, but that's how people often feel. And that's why I created Forum Next, because people often think it's about retirement. It's not. People think it's about longevity. It's not. It's really about, how do I keep using the skills that I want to keep using, dump the ones that I don't want to use anymore, and continue with that. So that's what I do. I help organizations to stop sidelining people. I help people to stop sidelining themselves. And I help people to rediscover purpose, identity, and contribution, whether it's through work, mentoring, volunteering, becoming an entrepreneur, going back to college, whatever, something entirely unexpected. The question that interests me most isn't how long are we going to live? Medical science has made great progress answering that one. The question I think we've neglected is far more interesting. How do we continue to matter? And that's what I want to help you with.